The last couple of years, Lumix really came out of nowhere and started producing what I think are the best hybrid cameras. Like, if you just want one brand in your bag to be shooting photo and video, you can't do any better than either the S1 II or the S1R II. And today we're gonna go through all of the settings that you need to know to get started shooting it. So we'll spend a little bit of time on photo, a lot more on video, because the photo stuff is a little simpler. But let's not waste any more time. Let's dig in on the S1 II. Before we dig into the menus, be sure to familiarize yourself with all the controls here. For example, you're gonna have to unlock these dials to be able to change them on both sides. This will change between photo and video mode and slow motion mode. So that's gonna be used very often. And over here, we're gonna power it on to get started. Very first thing I'm gonna do, because I just reset all the settings on here, so I'm starting from factory nothing. We're gonna press menu, and right away you'll notice it's pretty dark. I don't know why the default is so dark. We're gonna press down 2 times until we see the little wrench icon. Then I'm gonna go to the right, go to monitor display, monitor backlight, and just turn that up. I mean, I keep this at +3 most of the time. Right now I just need to balance the exposure for my room, so let's call it +1. Of course, this depends on your viewing environment. Auto is supposed to correct it, but I just find that often it's too dark, so I always turn it up. And all these menus are contextually aware to which mode you're in. So if you want to change video settings, you'd flip this dial to video or slow motion. But we're going to start off with photo. Just make sure that that's where the left dial is set to, photo mode. Now we're going to go back into our menu. First important thing to do is go to record file formats and make sure that we have RAW enabled. If you shoot JPEG, that's on you. Well, I know there's people that do, but to me, like, RAW is essential if you're gonna have a full frame camera. And if you don't shoot RAW, let me know why in the comments. I do think there's some good reasons why you might wanna shoot RAW and JPEG. If we go up to the top here, in photo styles, you can flip over through, the built-in ones, which are fine, whatever. But what's really interesting is that you can load custom LUTs in here. So once I get to real-time LUT, and then through the Lumix Lab app, you're able to add your own custom LUTs, either through the creators in their store, or you can go to my website and download my custom Lumix LUT packs, and you'll get a filmic look directly into the photos that you're taking. That's very cool to shoot JPEGs that already look like they're processed, which I have a whole video about. So if you want to know that whole workflow, stick around to the end of this video and there will be a link to the Filmic Lumix workflow at the end. So I'm gonna go back into the left here, go down to the gear icon and over into the 4th icon down, which is a camera and auto review. This is worth setting because when you take a photo, by default, it doesn't show you a preview of it. I like to have a momentary 0.5 second preview of what I just took. It just kind of allows me to be aware of what I'm shooting as I'm shooting it. Next, let's go back to the gear icon. By the way, you can just touch the screen as well. Then I'm going to go down by 3 until we are in operation. And something I like that they did with the S1 II series, different from the S5 II, is that now by default, all of the photo and video settings are totally separated. That was a setting you had to change before, and now you can customize them. So here we are, settings in photo mode, specifically photo mode. I like to turn off the record buttons. Basically now I'm just like assigning what does the record button do, and you can assign this to whatever you're like. I'm gonna go all the way down to no setting because I just find when I have these on, I end up pressing the record buttons in photo mode and just having a bunch of random clips that I did not mean to. And if you haven't noticed, there's another record button on the front. That one is still activated, so I'm gonna turn that off too. And to get through all of them, you just press up and down, gradually file through them until there we go. We have found the other record button, and I'll just go all the way down, turn it to no setting. Now there's no recording unless I'm in video mode. Now we'll look at a few of the physical controls that are important to know about. Right here is where you control all of the focus settings. So first is S, which is single point autofocus. C means continuous, so it's going to keep tracking as your subject moves closer and further. And MF is manual focus. So when we are in continuous, which I am most of the time, we can change the specific settings by pressing the button in the middle here. By default, I'm on one area, so that's like a single point. And you can see if I move the cursor around, that's what it's gonna focus on, whatever that one point is. I generally don't use that. I like to make this a larger point, so I'm gonna move over to the left and use zone focusing. So if I select that, you can see it's just a bigger zone, like it's a bigger target, bigger area. If I tap it, I can then use the wheels to make that target smaller or bigger, and I keep it at the biggest size, starting in the middle. I'll set it to that point, but if I ever need to reset it to the middle, I can press down on the joystick, just press in the center, and it resets the focal point to the center. Now let's go back into the menu. Another important thing to be aware of is this AF detection on-off button. I'm gonna press up, which that little icon is indicating, Or I could actually tap on the screen here and you'll see that it's turning on eye face body detection. This is now having intelligent human tracking autofocus, which you can also change what it's tracking. I mean, if you're not shooting humans that day, we could go down in the camera menu, go over to detect subject, and right now you can see I'm on human. This could be animal, car, motorcycle, train, airplane. All of them work really well. This is part of the huge improvements happening with Lumix lately, is now their autofocus is good. It used to be a little shaky. But I photograph humans most of the time, so this is perfect for me. You can also access these quickly with this detect subject menu here, which again lists animal, human, car, all this. And if you're tracking the head or the eye, I just generally keep it on the overall human thing and it does an intelligent job of tracking. No more super customizing all your focus settings. The defaults work really great now. No matter how great your camera is or how well it's set up, sometimes you need a shot and you just don't have it. That's when it's time to reach for Storyblocks, sponsor of today's video. And if you haven't used Storyblocks before, you're gonna be blown away just how big their creative catalog is. They have all the assets you need for your next project, high quality 4K footage from real artists around the world. And the best part is you can download as much as you want. Even these 4K ProRes files, extremely high quality. Just download them and try them out in your project, see if it's gonna work. The catalog is 100% human made, no AI generated content in here. They say on average, Storyblock users save 3.5 hours a week. Here's one way that I think it's really useful. If you go to their backgrounds, just search for a texture like paper, and you'll find a ton of these animations that are really inconvenient to make on your own, but very helpful going behind a title or adding a texture to an infographic. If you don't want to build those animations yourself, they have templates for all the major video editing software. So I'm gonna use Apple Motion for Final Cut Pro. And I can use just one of my infinite downloads to download all of these different data visualization tools. And anything you download from Storyblocks is 100% royalty-free, pre-licensed, and ready to use in your next project. So you can just grab one of their fresh videos that are constantly being updated and curated and insert it into whatever you're working on to tell today's stories. So to find out more, head to this URL so they know you heard about them in this video, or click the link in the description below. So thanks again, Storyblocks, for sponsoring this video. I think it's very important to know how these two dials on the top work. So let's start on the left. This is single frame at a time, like takes one photo, then takes another photo as you hold it down. The next one is burst mode 1, and the next one is burst mode 2. You can hear the difference there. Burst mode 1, that is the mechanical shutter going, and in the menus we can adjust that by going into burst shot settings, and in burst shot 1, that is high mode. Again, high speed using mechanical shutter, which does give you a little bit of an edge in terms of image quality. So generally I set that one to medium because I find high a little too fast. And then burst shot 2, I set to high mechanical because for me, the high quality of the mechanical shutter is more important than those ultra fast speeds that you can get with the electronic shutter. By the way, let's just look at that. The other cool one here is SH Pre. I think that's super high pre, but it does a pre-burst rate, so it's always recording a little bit to the buffer, and once you press the button, it captures a moment before you press the shutter and saves that to the card in RAW. It's amazing that it can do this so fast. Anyway, I don't usually use that, I'm in high mode. And by the way, you can customize that pre-record burst. You can bring it all the way up to 1.5 seconds. If you are gonna do that though, make sure you've got some very fast memory cards. So I'm always shooting Lexar. There is an SD and a CF Express Type B slot. So you're gonna probably wanna shoot that to the CF Express Type B, otherwise your buffer will quickly run out and the card won't be able to keep up. Back to the menu on the top, other than our burst modes, this is the high resolution mode. So it's gonna take multiple frames and stitch them together into a very high resolution image. I don't really use that feature, even though it's really cool. And then we've got time lapse and a regular timer. I love that there's physical controls to access that so you don't have to dig through the menus if it's something you go to often. So I'll go back to single frame. That's my typical shooting mode. Then if we go over here to the right, hopefully some of these are familiar to you. They are standard across most different cameras. IA means full automatic. You're not taking any control. I don't use that mode at all. P is mostly automatic, but you can do some steering. That is pretty useful. I occasionally switch into that if I just want to override white balance or whatever, and the camera does the rest of the thinking. What I use the most often though is A. This is aperture priority. I think there's a lot of people that use this the most. So now all I'm setting is the f2.8, you can see down there, and usually I'll set it to a relatively low number. I'm usually shooting between maybe 2.8 and 5.6, and then the shutter speed is calculated automatically by the camera. So I'm only making that one big decision and the rest of it is auto. Then we have shutter speed priority, same but with shutter speed instead of aperture. Full manual, so you're setting everything yourself. That's what we're gonna end up doing when we're in video mode. And then there are these custom settings, which you can save whatever configuration you're in so that you can quickly jump to one of these. I like to save these for video, so let's move on to video now and talk about some of those. Now, video is really where Lumix cameras excel. I think a lot of people think of video first when they think of Panasonic in general. And the S1R II was a way of them addressing that because it is more of a photo-first camera, a lot more megapixels than the S1 II. I think it's pretty easy to say if you're deciding between them, the S1R II is like the photo priority one, S1 II is video priority. But I'll just say that they are both fully capable in both use cases, and I do use them for both. Sometimes I don't want all of the file size, all the megapixels in those high resolution photos, and I will choose the S1 II. So that's when we're shooting for something on social media. Then again, when we're shooting video and we're shooting in a log format, I can use a lower base ISO on the S1R II. So there's some video features that are actually better on this. It's worth digging into the specs. This isn't a full review of them, just to say that the trade-offs are really interesting between these two cameras. So you're gonna have to take a pretty close look to figure out exactly which one's for you. Let's make some changes to video mode. So we're gonna flip the switch over here. So we are now shooting video and open up the menu again. The very first thing we have to think about is the first item in the menu, and that's the photo style. By default, it's set to standard. I just find this is too contrasty for video. Things blow out. It doesn't have all the dynamic range. Basically, standard looks great for photography. It's not as good for video. So we're gonna flip through these for a second. If you don't wanna do any color grading, you have a few great recommendations I can offer here. Cine-like A2, Cine-like D2, or Cine-like V2. All of these have a nice cinematic, subtle profile that are very usable. A2 is my absolute favorite. I think it's kind of got some of that Alexa flavor in it. So play around with them, see which one you like the most, but with any of those three, you just don't have to do a lot of color grading afterwards. I mean, unless you're like me and you love color grading. So I am always using either Vlog, or what's really impressive with these cameras is you can purchase an upgrade to access Alexa Log C. So now you are using the Alexa Color Science standard, licensed by Alexa, like this isn't a knockoff, baked into your Lumix camera. So this will match with much bigger cameras and fit into a more professional video framework. It's not that the image quality gets way better, but it is a more professional standard to be working with. So I really love that they integrated this. But right now I'm happy to just use Vlog and apply one of my LUTs afterwards. If you've ever struggled to grade log footage, it doesn't have to be hard. Just put a nice LUT on it and it should look pretty great with very minimal effort. That is the way to go. And if you're in video mode, you can do real-time LUTs as well. This is similar to when you're in photo mode. It just applies that color and saves it to the video as you're shooting it. One of the next menu items is worth looking at. That's dynamic range boost. This is amazing. If you haven't seen, tests like Cine D have shown that with this turned on, at some quality settings, it can basically match an Alexa's dynamic range. This is one of the amazing things about Lumix cameras right now. Like they're using the same sensors as Sony or others, but with this dynamic range boost on, you're getting all of the detail you could ever hope for. Generally, I don't need it because there's already so much dynamic range in Vlog that this little bit of extra in the highlights is only required if you are, outdoors and you have a lot of highlights in the sky, you're really trying to hold on to something. But in a controlled environment like this, it is overkill. And there's a little bit of a trade-off. You do end up having to shoot at a higher base ISO. The lowest you can go is now 1000, whereas if we turn that boost off, our base ISO is now down to 640. That's a pretty significant difference. But I just want to show you that advantage on the S1 IIR. Now I can go all the way to ISO 200, even when I'm in Vlog. And if I switch over to the dynamic range expansion, I can go down to ISO 400, even better than the regular ISO limits on the S1 II. That is super helpful and just means you rely on less ND filters for the S1R II. And last note on dynamic range boost, it also increases the rolling shutter on both of these cameras, especially the S1R II. So if you're moving around a lot, like you're running and gunning, just don't bother using it. You'll get a lot more wobbles in your camera. Use it for a talking head or a static shot like this. Now we'll finally get past the first screen of video settings. And now we're on image quality 2. In this SS gain operation, I like to change this to angle ISO. So now when you're shooting, you're using the shutter angle to decide instead. And generally you want to keep this at 180 degrees. Right now, you'll notice that it jumps in really big increments. Like as I move the dial, it's going 90, 108, 120, 180. Those are pretty big jumps. So there is a way to get around that. Once you've changed it to angle ISO, we can go back to image quality 1, the first screen here, sorry. and we're gonna go to synchro scan and just turn that on. And now the increments are much smaller. It only goes up by one angle at a time, so that if you accidentally bump this dial, you're still near 180. You're not making it something completely different. Now moving ahead, we can skip all of these settings and we'll go into record file format. I absolutely prefer MOV. MP4 is best for if you're just like not color grading it at all. You're maybe not going to edit it too heavily. Like that's kind of the beginner setting. So if you're a beginner, go for it. Keep it on MP4. If you're going to be editing, I would choose MOV as the file format. Now record quality, there are just hundreds of options in here. Like I can't even tell you how many. So I'm just going to tell you the most basic standard that you're going to want to use most of the time. It'll take me 5 minutes to find it. Okay, so here we go. On the right, I'm looking at 4K, 30p, 422, 10L. Or what I'm recording this YouTube video on is very similar, 4K, 24p, 422, 10L. So that's 24 frames per second instead of 30. It's giving you a really robust file with 422 color and 10 bits. In a long GOP compression format, it reads all of this out for you, very helpful. And also it tells you the amount of megabits per second that it is saving it at. So it's good to just like flip through these, become familiar with them. But as you discover the ones that you want, pressing the Q button will add them to a favorites list. So I'm gonna add the 24 4K option there. And now when I go back to the menu, right below that, I have record quality, my list, and the only one in there is the one that I'm gonna use. So it's worth curating this custom list for, just take a few minutes to do it and put all of the frame rate options that you might reach for often. So I might often go for a 60 frame per second option, add that to my list. And maybe I also want to be able to use the 6K option, so I'll also add that to my list. Now let's keep moving along. I'm just going to scroll down right past focus because that's all set up nicely, similar to how we do things in photo. In sound, I'm going to want to turn my sound record level display on. All this does is that while you're recording, you can see the levels jump up and down. It's helpful if you're ever talking to camera. And also just be aware of this sound record gain level. Some microphones work better if it is on low, if they have a built-in preamp, or you might need to turn them up, and then you could do sound record level adjust and go up and down here. Generally, you're not going to want to use the microphones built into these cameras. You're going to want to use something external. So this is how you manage the volume for them. Now I'll jump all the way down to the second camera on the left here. The next important menu item is going to be image stabilizer. And actually this one's so important that I like to assign it a custom button. So let me show you how to do that before we even get into it. Any of these buttons on the back here, you can press and hold, like I'm gonna press and hold up, that's where I assign mine. And now we are in the assignment area where I can go through and select image stabilizer. And now every time that I tap that, it helps me turn it either off or on. Oh, and that reminds me, actually what I want to assign it to is E-stabilization. That gives me the option between all of these. So cropless means that as it's stabilizing, you still see the full frame of the image. Standard is what I use a lot of the time. It crops in a little bit, but the stabilization is very strong. Like it is reliable, but it looks natural. Then there's also high, and this is for like, if you're actually running, this is the closest you could get to like iPhone stabilization on these cameras. I wouldn't use it if you don't need it because it's got a pretty aggressive crop, but yeah, standard, I can live at that a lot of the time if I'm walking around, and I'll just turn it off if I'm sitting on a tripod like this. Moving along to the gear icon, I like to make this one change. If we go down to exposure control in PASM, in photo mode, I like this dial to set how I'm exposing the image, but in video, I actually always keep it on manual. So this will basically override the settings. Regardless of what this dial is set to, video mode will always be fully manual. This is up to you, depending how you shoot. If you need automatic, then that's fine, but I am always shooting video in manual and using an ND filter to help me with exposure. And lately, I'm using this 2 to 5 stop Polar Pro PL ND filter. Works fantastic, very high quality. Now let's just keep going. I'm going to go all the way down into the second monitor display option area here. There are some great ones here like log view assist. That's important to keep on. So when you are in log, you're getting a Vlog 709 preview so that your image looks correct. You can also load in custom LUTs there if you prefer. I'm going to go down to frame markers. This is just very helpful if you're shooting a mix of content. Like right now with my overhead camera, I'm actually shooting this in open gate. So I want to be able to shoot both 16:9 and 9:16 video at the same time. So I can select 9:16. Let's set a bright color so we can see what that looks like. And now when we turn it on, we have this bright red rectangle in our video screen. We can also add another frame marker. Frame number 2 could be set to, like, let's say we're shooting some kind of widescreen option like 2:1, and that frame might be green so we can see them both. Now when I'm shooting, they're both really visible. So you're ready to crop for horizontal or for social media, and you know what's going to be in your frame in the end. And this is actually what I assigned to one of my custom buttons I used a lot. If we go up by 1, I actually missed something. I like to turn the level gauge on. It seems like it already is. This is just in display. You see this yellow bit moving around. Basically, it tells you if your camera is level in every direction. This is so helpful when you're setting up a shot, especially on a tripod, so you don't make a mistake and regret it later. We're in the display settings. Another option I really like is red record frame indicator. So we can turn that on, and then when I start recording, I get this bright red line around the outside of my LCD on the back, so I always just know for sure when it is and is not recording. And if we go down to the wrench icon, I think there's one more thing we should look at here. In the double card slot function, you just need to kind of understand this area. I'm not going to tell you what to choose, but this is going to decide which card is being written to first. And if you don't understand these settings, you may not know where your files are going, especially if you have 2 cards in there like I do right now. Basically, this first setting is recording method. Relay recording is my default, so it records to one card, fills it, then jumps to the next card. You can also do backup recording, so it's recording to both at the same time. Or you could have photos go to one card and video go to the other. And then there's also this destination card, which do you start on card 1 or card 2? This actually is a decision you should make because I prefer SD cards. I use them more often. So I like to default to the SD cards first. So that's 2 and then 1. And those are all the most important settings on your Lumix S1 II or S1R II. If you have any questions, let me know down below. And hey, I promised a video about how to live color grade to get filmic colors straight out of your Lumix without any post-processing. Click on that video and hopefully you learned something. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you over there.